So Jurassic Park is a thing. I just couldn't resist talking about dinosaurs again, even with how recent the Dino Crisis episode was. So here we go with more dinosaurs from one of the greatest movies ever made, and one of my absolute favorite movies, hands down. Seriously, this movie is a masterclass in movie making. The special effects still hold, even if the actual computers in the movie don't. Well, look how amazing these dinosaurs still look to this day. The scene where Dr. Grant and Dr. Sadler first see the dinosaurs gets me every time, compounded by the fact that this is the first time we, the audience, are also seeing dinosaurs on screen fully for the first time in the movie, and sort of for the first time in the history of the moving picture are we seeing realistic dinosaurs. Could you imagine if you actually saw a dinosaur in real life like that? Your face would shit. This movie is amazing on so many levels that people sometimes forget that it was based on a book by the same title, written by Michael Crichton. Jurassic Park is one of the greatest movies in terms of its technical achievements and shot composition, and it also tells a very human story that is smart scientifically and thematically. Usually the first thing you hear from people who watch a movie based off a book is, the book was better. But with Jurassic Park, that's not the case at all. In fact, Jurassic Park is the only book-adapted movie I have seen where I can't tell if I like the book or the movie more. They're at least on par. They both have very different but amazing qualities. The book is definitely smarter. It goes way deeper into the science of cloning, the ethics of bringing back extinct species, and the nonlinear mathematical nature around trying to control inherently chaotic and complex systems. While the movie has motherfucking dinosaurs. Okay, the book has them too, but it's not as great as a cinematic experience. Spielberg, being the genius that he is, understood that cinematic nature of dinosaurs, and he was able to pull it all together with the help of industrial light and magic, and a lot of patience with animatronics that he picked up from shooting Jaws. The movie has incredible scenes of majestic and magical encounters with dinosaurs, right alongside these terrifying, life-threatening moments of destruction and death, also by the aforementioned dinosaurs, and sometimes the same dinosaur. Dinosaurs don't give a fuck about you.
So that's chaos theory.
But the adaptation of book to screen matters because many movies do not make this leap effectively. I think Jurassic Park worked because of the way the book was written and how the screenplay was altered to reflect this change by strengthening an already great storytelling tool from the book. That tool being who is narrating and who is the main character of the book, and why and how these two things translate to the big screen. And so today, I am amazing and surprising even myself by not talking about the actual dinosaurs while I talk about Jurassic Park. Okay, I'll probably talk about the dinosaurs at least a little bit. As I already mentioned, Jurassic Park was written by Michael Crichton and was published in 1990. The even then famous and renowned director, Steven Spielberg, was already interested in the book before it had even been published, and picked up the rights to the movie, which was adapted into a screenplay by Michael Crichton himself and David Koepp. The movie was released in 1993 and took the world by storm. The technical achievements of the practical effects are still amazing. Stan Winston created the animatronics, and Phil Tippett was tapped to help create realistic movements by studying animals. Tippett's official credit in the movie is Dinosaur Supervisor. That's a dream job title right there. The technical crew sought the expertise of paleontologist Dr. Jack Horner to help solidify what the creatures would look like. Interestingly, Horner was the real-world inspiration for Alan Grant. The team worked tirelessly to make great-looking dinosaurs, giving each of them a distinct look, which may not be accurate, but allowed for a recognizable differentiation between species, even at a quick glance. The actors selected were all of the highest caliber and were either already famous or went on to do other amazing works. Laura Dern as Dr. Sattler, Sam Neill is iconic as Dr. Grant, Jeff Goldblum solidified his memification in Hollywood with his portrayal of Ian Malcolm. John Hammond was played by Richard Attenborough, the brother of world-renowned David Attenborough. Yes, that David Attenborough. Wayne Knight as the neurotic Dennis Nedry, and Samuel L. Jackson as Mr. Arnold. Be honest, you forgot Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie, didn't you?
Hold on to your butts.
And the music. Oh, John Williams, you genius! This is my favorite piece of John Williams music, and it's not because of the dinosaurs. It's because the park theme and the movie theme are both so different, but so evocative. With all of these unrealistically talented people providing amazing and state-of-the-art work, it's not surprising the movie did so well. It won all of the awards. There are no awards it did not win. And over the course of its lifetime and international box office releases, it has made over $1 trillion, not an exaggeration.
Spared no expense.
Jurassic Park is still referenced as a mastercraft for its technical filmmaking and for its casting, acting, music, and, well, everything, really. Plus, you can tell how good a movie is by something I call the DPM rating, which stands for dinosaurs per minute. However many minutes a movie has dinosaurs on screen is directly proportional to how good the movie is. This is an unbiased and objective fact. The movie was also re-released to theaters in 2013. I watched it 3 times in 2 days. I regret nothing! So clearly I have a mad dinosaur-shaped heart-on for this movie, but what about the book? Is it as good? What was changed? As I said before, the book is smarter for sure, and there's far more revealed about the characters' lives that makes them feel real. It's hard to explain, but here are most of the most notable differences in the plot. Most of the main plot points are the same. Dinosaurs have been recreated, and a Scrooge McDuckian-style shit-tillionaire named John Hammond decides to open a park around them. He puts a team of experts together to assuage the lawyers, insurance companies, and investors that everything is going well in the park. In the book, there's a lot more lead up to this, with a dinosaur attack and a character named Ed Regis, who is not included in the movie. He was sort of mixed with Donald Gennaro, kind of. The team of Dr. Sattler and Dr. Grant, along with Donald Gennaro and Ian Malcolm, are joined by Hammond's 2 grandkids, Lex and Tim. The only difference in the book here is that Lex is younger at only about 6 years of age and is much more into sports, specifically baseball, and Tim is the one who likes computers. The kids are also trying to come to grips with the fact that their parents are getting a divorce. The main story pretty much plays out the same from there, with Dennis Nedry attempting to steal embryos for a man named Dodgson, but failing. And in the book, it is presumed that Malcolm dies. It basically all but says he died, but I guess this is like Shakespeare. If the stage direction doesn't say a person dies or is dead, then you can never tell. Also, John Hammond dies, but for the most part, the same shit goes down. So why does this movie work when so many others fail? Even with less changes from the book, most movie adaptations still can't seem to get it right. One of the first things creative writing or literature students are taught is the different ways stories can be told in terms of narration. This can be tricky. Here's a quick recap for those who haven't thought about narration styles in a while. The 2 most basic ways to narrate a story are third person and first person. Third person is telling the story as a separate non-diegetic entity that depicts what is going on as though they are also watching the scenes and events play out and then reiterate or tell them to the reader or audience. You can easily tell third person narration by the use of third person pronouns such as he, she, or they as the events are being depicted. The second type of narration is first person. This is when the story is told directly from inside a character's head, and events are told from their perspective, often with their thoughts and point of view of the events as they're experienced by that character. This is easily identifiable by the use of the first person pronoun, I, as the character experiences the events of the story. Phew, impromptu English lessons over. These are only the basics because tense is also a hugely important factor, but to keep things easy, we'll stick with just points of view. In the case of the novel Jurassic Park, Crichton used third-person omniscient, meaning that the narrator is not bound or tethered to the actions of one person, and is free to tell a story that can bend space and time to tell different characters' stories separately, though the events may be occurring at the same time in 2 different locations. Although in Jurassic Park the story is told in a linear depiction, with the events leading into the next in a standard causal fashion. The events of the past are told as memories, not as flashbacks, but the events are told from different perspectives. As causal events unfold in the normal temporal fashion, the story of the events is told by different characters throughout the whole book. This is because Jurassic Park the novel does not have one definitive main character, or even 2 or 3 really. There are certainly characters that the narrator returns to more often than others, and these characters play a central part to the story or have insight that is useful to the events and beats of the story, but often an important scene will surround one of these characters while they explain a concept or make a discovery, sometimes even from the perspective of a person who is in direct opposition. So we the audience are hearing the voice of reason, but it's coming from the perspective of someone who disagrees drastically while we are tethered to that person by the narrator for that section of the story. It could be argued that the characters that are most central to the plot are Dr. Alan Grant, Dr. Ellen Ellie Sattler, and Dr. Ian Malcolm, and probably more so Malcolm than anyone else. But almost every named character has part of the story told from their perspective. From Dennis Nedry to John Hammond, Lex and Tim, even Dr. Henry Wu and Mr. Arnold. Some might say that a movie made this way would suffer from a lack of a main character. There's nothing to focus on, but that is not the case for Jurassic Park. Every character is important for one reason or another. The movie takes its time giving each of the characters a scene that helps establish who they are. Gennaro in the jungle, Dr. Sattler and Grant are introduced working together and then to John Hammond, Robert Muldoon on the island with the dinosaur at the very beginning, Dennis Nedry and his whole side plot.
Dodgson! Dodgson! We've got Dodgson here! Nobody cares.
And then Ian Malcolm on the helicopter being his obnoxious self, and lastly Lex and Tim as they become more relevant. This feels like it should be messy, but because the book was expertly crafted, it's often cited as Crichton's best, it works for the movie as well. Jurassic Park has no main character that it focuses on all the time. And this works because that's how the book was told, and that works because of the choice of narration style. By nature of being a film, the story has to be told from the perspective of a camera. Duh. This means the audience looks through a window into the world as the characters move through that world. As a translation from narrative to the visual medium, this is a third-person view, a non-diegetic way of conveying information and events as they occur. Some movies have attempted to try and do the first-person camera thing, and for some shots it really works, but for a whole movie it becomes difficult because we have a harder time seeing the characters' movements, and in particular, their emotions. For video games, this works because we have control over the movements of the character, but when a story moment plays out, we the audience require a lot of information from facial expressions and body language to make sense of a conversation. This is tricky while using a first-person camera perspective. As a result, most movies don't do this outside of a few specialized shots or sequences. The other way to attempt first-person narration is to get inside the head of the character by shooting it in third person, but adding the character's thoughts as a voiceover.
And what better way to share my private thoughts than to broadcast them on the internet?
Movies often begin this way to establish who the narrator or main character is, but during conversations or events, this is often left to the wayside in order to show and not tell. And thus we are left with only the third-person perspective of the camera. Close-up shots of a person's face to convey their thoughts or emotions can be helpful, but this is still peering at rather than peering through their perspective. I love The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, but I often feel that the movies are less powerful than the books. I think this is because the books work from a first-person perspective inside Katniss's head, where we get all of her thoughts and bias towards what she sees and experiences. That includes all of her trauma and baggage, which is lost when we don't hear her justification or reaction to things in the movie. We only see things play out and then follow Katniss as she does things because of what we saw. And sometimes this is jarring because there's no context. The translation of a first-person narration to a third-person camera leaves behind a lot of reasons why the story was so impactful and effective in The Hunger Games. Those movies are still a great watch, but they're not on the same level as Jurassic Park. The reason Jurassic Park works so seamlessly on the screen is because of the way the narration translates to the camera. If we do not experience an event as a character, we are certainly going to hear about their reaction to it after the fact.
Now where does he think he's going? When you gotta go, you gotta go.
When filming this, the third-person camera can show us what any or all of the characters are seeing. We no longer get their inner thoughts and feelings, but the actors do a great job reacting and show individuality in their characters, so we can glean what we need from this in place of the narration. There are a lot of reasons why Jurassic Park is one of the greatest films of all time, and I'm not just talking about the DPM. But I think that because the source material was already using a very fluid narration style, the adaptation of the story, even with so many characters, was easy to put on the big screen. That is why I think when film creators adapt books into movies, even books that use third-person narration, they need to think in terms of how the story is going to be depicted to the audience, and how a perspective shift might affect how the story is told and the impact the narration had on the themes and nature of the story. And that is why Jurassic Park might just be the only movie to be as good as the book. That and the dinosaurs per minute, and the sound effects. Oh, the roar of the T-Rex is so iconic and thrilling. The scene in the car with the cup of water has become cinema legend and a trope that is almost a meme now. And I know it makes no actual sense in terms of physics, but it's so visually recognizable and everybody does it. I do wish that the movie had more discourse surrounding the chaotic nature of large systems the way the book has, but I also get to see raptors open doors in the movie, so you win some, you lose some. I honestly can't tell you which I find more terrifying, a giant T-Rex or the agile, super smart raptors, regardless of how inaccurate each of them are. I could gush about this movie and the dinosaurs for hours, and that would be two separate lists to gush about. Man, I love this movie, and man, do I like dinosaurs! You didn't say the magic word. The magic word here being like and subscribe, and share if you can. I hope you enjoyed that video. I'd love to hear your thoughts about narration and translation of storytelling from literature to the movie, especially in the last decade or so, since we had a bunch of YA novels adapted into movies. Maybe one just didn't work out the way you wanted, or maybe there was one that you wanted and it just never got translated. Let me know. And stick around for more episodes of This Is a Thing or our weekly podcast called Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline.